Turok came from the Nashville Zoo, and Susan, up there at the top, she came from the Point Defiance Zoo in the state of Washington.
Hello and welcome to the Houston Zoo. Please join us at our giraffe exhibit located at the exit of the African forest for a chance to feed
one day we'll have baby
about our amazing giraffe.
From them.
Please note, you may purchase
one
your
of the things
giraffe.
that they found that works really well with clouded leopards is getting them together really young. Because if we wait till they're older, like for a clouded leopard, if they're like a year or a year and a half old, sometimes the male can be really aggressive to the female and even kill her. Huh? No, you can't. I just have to squirt this time because sometimes they can be dangerous and they can reach out and try to grab you or something. So we got these guys together at a very young age, and they seem to be getting along pretty well. Suzanne, are you going to come down? Hey, are you going to come down? Uh-oh.
Wow.
Are you coming down?
Come on!
So, clouded leopards. Does anyone know where you find clouded leopards in the wild?
Asia.
In Asia, that's right. They're found in Southeast Asia. So you can find some clouded leopards in areas like China and Vietnam and Thailand and Laos. And then you can find another type of clouded leopard on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra. And it's a different species altogether.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Can they be found in Alabama?
Well, you could probably find one in a zoo in Alabama, but not out in the wild. All of these guys come from Asia. And one of the things that they're really good at is they're excellent tree climbers. So they have really short legs, but really broad paws, and a very, very long tail. And all of that helps them to be really good at climbing and maneuvering around in the trees. So since they're so good at climbing in the trees, they'll hunt things that live in trees, like monkeys. So they can eat things like pigtail macaques or long-tail macaques or proboscis monkeys, or those funny-looking monkeys with the really big nose. Or birds. Yep, that kind of thing. But you know how a lot of cats, like if you have a house cat, a lot of them can climb up a tree, but they have trouble climbing down? Clouded leopards can climb head first, straight down a tree, and they can even climb upside down underneath a branch. So they are really, really good at climbing. And one of the other things that's pretty cool about the clouded leopard is they have the longest set of teeth, canine teeth, out of any member of the cat family in relation to their body size. So in other words, when Turok is full grown, he'll weigh about 50 pounds. He's a little bit over 30 pounds right now. He's about 34 pounds actually. So he has another 16 or so pounds to grow. But his teeth will be about as long as a tiger's teeth. So their canines can be up to 2 inches long, which is about how long a tiger's teeth are, but just packed into a much smaller body. And so a lot of scientists believe that they are the closest living relative to a cat you guys have probably heard of. The Latin name is Smilodon. You probably haven't heard of that, but you probably have heard of the saber-toothed cat, or the saber-toothed tiger, sometimes they call it that. But it really wasn't closely related to the tigers, it was more closely related to clouded leopards. And we're not sure exactly how many clouded leopards are in the wild, but we know that they are endangered. And a big problem that they're having is a lot of places where they live, they cut down the forest to put up palm oil trees. And once the palm oil trees go up, it's not enough cover, and so the clouded leopards leave that area. And then also a lot of people will hunt them because their coats are so pretty. They have such a pretty looking coat. And that's how they get their name, Clouded Leopard, because the little cloud patterns on the side. But a lot of times people will hunt them to try to make coats or jackets out of their skins. And so we're trying a couple of things to make sure that these guys stay around for a long time. One of the things that we do is we participate in something called the SSP, and it's the Species Survival Plan. And so by pairing 2 particular clouded leopards up for breeding, hopefully we will have cubs from these guys at some point in time, so we can increase the captive population of clouded leopards. And we've also gone out and continue to help with a research program going on in the wild where we find out how many clouded leopards are in the wild in different forest areas. And so the way that we did that is I actually went out to Borneo for about a month with a researcher from Oxford University, and we set up camera traps all throughout the forest. And a camera trap is just a camera that's hidden in a box, and we'll mount that to a tree, and whenever a clouded leopard walks past, it'll take a picture of him. And then once you have a picture of both his right side and his left side, you can identify that as an individual, because every clouded leopard has a different set of spots. And so you could say this is clouded leopard A or clouded leopard B, or you could even name them, but you could just get a good idea of what or how many there are out there. You can climb up here?
Oh, wow.
He'll show you some of his climbing skills.
Wow.
And take a look at how broad his paws are and how sharp those claws. He has very, very sharp claws. And so the area that we were looking at in Borneo is an area called Crocker Range National Forest, and it's high in the mountains. And previously, people had thought that there weren't any clouded leopards in this region because it was at a very, very high altitude. But we covered an area of about 150 square kilometers, and we found out there's roughly about 6 clouded leopards for every 100 square kilometers or so in Crocker Range in Borneo. So they do exist there, and that was all at pretty high elevation. Some of the elevations were like 10 or 12,000 feet, so that's like close to being up on a mountain in Colorado, but in a tropical mountain, which is very different, very hard to maneuver around it. You guys have any questions about clouded leopards?
I do.
What's your question?
How high can they climb?
There's really no limit to how high they can climb. However tall the tree is, they can climb all the way up to the very top. You can see in this exhibit, it's about 22 feet up to the top wherever she is, and they have no trouble getting up there. But even if a tree was 50 or 100 feet high, like some of the trees where they live, they could still climb all the way up to the top of that.
But what if it's what if it's a thin tree?
A thin tree? Well, eventually, if the tree is thin enough and they weigh too much, the tree won't support them. They could fall down. But if the branches are thick enough, like some of these branches in his exhibit here, they could climb all the way up to however high it is.
You mentioned efforts to increase their numbers in captivity. How do you go about increasing their numbers in the wild and stuff like that? Do you take them at a very young age and put them in the wild, or? No,
there is no release program as of right now for clouded leopards back into the wild. There's a program going on in Thailand where they take animals that have been caught for maybe catching chickens or animals that get injured in the wild, and they can put them on these large areas. But once clouded leopards get used to being around people, it's very difficult to then put them in the wild because they don't fear people. But what we can do is figure out which different management strategies work the best for different forests. And we could say, okay, this area within Borneo